Hi, my name is Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to look at some very interesting charts that I feel has made such an amazing emphasis on the world. They've changed the world forever. And the first chart I want to put up is the chart when the United States bombed Hiroshima. So this is the chart for the attack on Hiroshima, which is August 5th, 1945. And what you're going to find is that what I've been talking about, where Rahu and Ketu are, they will be in these very specific nakshatras only once every 18 and a half years. Remember, Rahu and Ketu cause eclipses. So these are where the eclipses are happening. And in this dire chart of tragedy and death and sickness, you will find that Saturn is conjunct Rahu and the moon and Venus. But all three, Rahu, Moon, and Venus, are in the nakshatra Ardra. Ardra symbol is tragedy and sadness. Now, Ketu is not in the most dire nakshatra yet, Mula, but it's about to be, but it is in Sagittarius. Now, why is this important? When I put up the chart of the United States, you will see that this chart that I use for the United States, that Rahu is right there with Saturn transiting, because the event chart is actually the Hiroshima chart, but Saturn and Rahu on that day were very close to the Sun and Jupiter. And not to mention the moon. The moon is actually the triggering device. When the moon comes up and hits these long-standing aspects, it triggers the day that something occurs. Actually, in the chart for 9/11, we have Jupiter, Rahu, and the moon in Gemini, affecting the United States chart. But going back to this event, which I feel is so interesting, you're going to find so many tie-ups with the United States, because of course the United States inflicted this terrible event, but the facts are the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor and the United States retaliated. I mean, World War II was the most awful war ever, and so many people lost their lives. And the destruction was, if you think things are bad now, go back and look at some original videos of World War II. I mean, it is devastating. But also on that day, Mars was close to Uranus on the day of the attack, there in Taurus. And what you will find, I have been pointing out, and you'll find through this series, that when there's a horrific event, so many times there's a planet around 20 to 23 degrees Taurus or Scorpio. But looking at this, here resides Uranus, 23 degrees of Taurus. And Mars is approaching the exact conjunction with that. And this is causing all of the issues and torments that continue on throughout this period. Now, days later, they attacked again. So there's still another chart, but I thought maybe the first attack would give us the true essence of what was going on. Now, also looking at this chart, if you will look to the United States chart, and you look where Rahu and Ketu are, it's interesting that the Sun from the attack chart is almost exactly on Rahu, but even more interesting, notice that Pluto is very, very close to Rahu. And remember this, Pluto is right there around 16 degrees of Cancer from the attack day, and it sits right on Rahu in the United States chart in the 8th house of death and destruction, of scandals, of secrets, but most of all, it is the house of death. And think about it, Pluto is the planet of what? Death. It rules the underworld. It has everything to do with what the 8th house is about as well. So put Pluto, transiting Pluto from this day in the United States chart, and it sits right on Rahu, which is fate and destiny and karma, on Rahu in the 8th house of the United States. And Pluto and the Sun are both aspecting, of course, Ketu and natal Pluto in the United States chart. So I thought that was fascinating. And another thing that's really, truly fascinating about these charts to me is that Neptune has come almost full circle, or it has come full circle to come back to its starting position at this time. Notice Neptune in the United States chart is 1 degree of Virgo, while transiting Neptune from this chart is 11 degrees of Virgo. And if you consider this, it takes Neptune approximately like 140 some odd years to go through the entire zodiac. So this is, one of the many returns it's had since 1776. But Neptune is about deception, things you can't see going on. And Neptune being right there on Neptune in the 10th house, there was a lot that wasn't said and was going on. Now, I don't proclaim to claim who was right or wrong in this. This was something that was just a destiny. It had to happen to probably end the war. And who knows if it had to happen, but one way or another, it is a fated event. It's something that changed history forever, regardless of what your theories are, your beliefs are. It was a time of war, and nobody wins with war, and nobody's right with war, really. It's just, we have to learn to get along, but this was critical. And let me just say this, with Neptune being there, and also from the Hiroshima attack, here's something else. Jupiter was conjunct Neptune in the 10th house of the United States. So Jupiter being right there in the 10th house could mean this was fortunate for the United States. It ended the war. Jupiter, Neptune, great deception. Here's another thing else you may not know about the attacks on Hiroshima or on Japan. The United States told the Japanese, after they did 2 atomic bombs on their country, that they were going to bomb Tokyo with the 3rd one. And it was not the truth. The United States did not even have a 3rd atomic bomb. But they called their bluff, and before they realized they didn't have another bomb, they surrendered. So that could be a little bit of the Neptune being deceit, denial, conjoining in the United States 10th house on Saturn, which is in the 10th house of the United States chart, representing the leader. So I find this also interesting. You can see how this chart aligns so beautifully with Rahu being right there, conjoining the Sun from the attack chart. If you put the attack chart across the United States chart, you have Pluto on Rahu. You have Saturn, transiting Saturn right there close to the Sun, which represents leadership. The president had to make that horrific call. And if you look at where Rahu is, Rahu from the Hiroshima attack chart is exactly on Jupiter in the United States chart. That's astounding. Then when you look at even the moon, it lines up with Venus exactly on that day. And even you will find that the moon aligns with, yes, Venus, and then Venus is very close to Mars. So there's these 4 planets in Gemini from the attack chart that line up with the planets in the 7th house. So if you didn't find that so interesting, you're going to find the next thing that I discovered very interesting. So let's take the chart away of Hiroshima and let's replace it with a chart, and I call this the Roswell chart, the Roswell Crash. So what was the Roswell Crash? This is where supposedly an alien spacecraft crashed in Roswell, New Mexico. And what's so interesting is every time we start playing around with atomic energy, guess what happens? There are so many more sightings of UFOs all over Earth. They're coming down and trying to say something and protect us. And what is that? That atomic energy not only destroys ourselves, but it destroys the universe. It sets out waves in the universe that affects our entire universal connections. And these aliens, if you want to believe in them or whatever, there's something that comes every time this happens. And there's even been accounts where nuclear testing has been occurring and all of a sudden something comes out of the sky and snuffs it out. This is a fact. What is doing that? I don't think it's another country. It's something bigger than that. Could it be aliens? So here's what I want to put up. Looking at this chart, let's now compare this chart to the United States chart. So this was 2 years after the bombing of Hiroshima. And the day that this happened was July 7th, 1947. I don't know exactly when it happened, so I just put out 12 noon. But what I want you to do is cross-reference the planets from this chart to the United States chart. And notice that we have Uranus, which is a planet. These outer planets deal with the collective unconscious. They deal with our subconscious. They deal with our psychology too. So they're not actually physical. Therefore, they are such big determinants in world events. And Uranus had just entered Gemini right on Mars in the United States chart. If you look where Venus is right there close to the Mars and Venus in the United States chart. But what I find fascinating is where the Sun is. The Sun on that day was at 21 degrees of Gemini, where the Sun for the United States chart is at 22 degrees of Gemini. Remember in mundane charts, the Sun is the president, the leaders. And apparently there was something going on concerning this crash that I believe the president at the time, Harry Truman, had to know about. So talking about that going forward, go to where the planets are in the 8th house of the United States and plug in where Saturn was on that day. 15 degrees of Cancer, exactly conjunct Rahu. Now, I think that's pretty astounding because it's exact in the 8th house. Secrets, denials, things we don't know about. And there is a lot, I believe, looking at these charts that we don't know about. Look at where Mercury is. Mercury was exactly conjunct natal Mercury of the United States chart, and in both cases, Mercury is retrograde. There is so much that is secret about this crash that the United States is connected with in some way. And when we plug in Neptune on that day, of course we have Neptune is approaching Saturn in the 10th house. Neptune is always things we don't know about. But realize that Saturn, when it's aspecting both the 8th and the 2nd house, Rahu and Ketu, this is affecting great concerns about secrecy, and nothing can ever be revealed. And it has a lot to do with the financial situations, somehow, some way. But finally, one of the things that I want to pull together with this that's pretty astounding is notice where the moon is in both of these charts. To consider the fact that the moon was exactly conjunct the moon on that day with the United States chart is astounding. And so the sun and the moon are exactly connected in these charts. There's something connected about this Roswell crash that we don't know about that's big time with the United States. Now, is this all a coincidence? And is this all out there? Consider this. There are billions and maybe billions of stars out there with planets that revolve around those stars. Do you really have the ego to think that we're the only life form in this vast, unending universe? No, it's more impossible that we are the only life form in such a vast universe. And I find it so interesting how all the sightings are in such multitude when atomic energy is being tested or used. And I have to believe, and maybe I'm wrong, that the aliens are looking out for us if there are aliens out there, because why are they trying to stop us from destroying ourselves? Because that's essentially what we're doing at our level of intelligence at this day and time. I mean, people still don't believe in aliens. This is something that if you open your mind, and you probably wouldn't be watching this if you didn't believe somewhat in astrology. But if you open your mind to the possibilities of what is out there, you will open your world. And by having more knowledge, we become more intelligent, not ignorant. Ignorant is when we don't open our mind to look at things that are possible out there in the world and put all the clues together. And make your assessments, but don't just listen and believe. Start to do some research. And this is what I'm doing. Research using what I know best to use, which is astrology. And by the way, astrology at this point in time, we cannot prove how it works because it is more than gravity. But now we're coming to an age where we're starting to make some discoveries with energy, with physics, that we will be able to better understand how our universe affects us. So with that, I'd like to close. If you would like more information on me and you would like my free newsletter or a consultation, go to my website, which is galacticcenter.org. Or if you would like to study Vedic astrology with me, I have a wonderful online university. Check it out, University of Vedic Astrology.com. Thank you.